exactly as it happened, that we all watched in television. Well, this morning I am going to bring you a real scenario based on a real scenario that happened in our religious school at Congregation Eitz Chaim. I'm going to present the question that the teacher posed so brilliantly to the class. We're going to come back together and I'm going to get some of your answers in a few different aliyot from now. And then I'm going to tell you what I think the answer is and why. So here's the scenario that the teacher, who will remain anonymous, right, posed as a challenging question to her class. Like most religious school classes, this particular teacher had been collecting tzedakah each and every morning from the kids. The kids each brought in $1, whatever it was, coins, what have you, and they had collected a good amount of money. Only now the teacher asked the class, what should we do with all this tzedakah money? Where should it go? And she presented the class with two different options. The first option was that the class could use the money to help provide a scholarship to a child whose family could not afford the school. Or they could donate the money to buy a new piece of playground equipment for the day school where they went, or religious school where they went. Now, I want you to think about that. Somebody might be laughing because she heard this scenario in religious school, but I want you to think about it. The answer is not as easy or as obvious as it seems. Okay, folks, so let's get some voices in the room here. What do we think? Would we go with the red playground ball, if you will, the shiny new toy? Or do you think we would vote for the scholarship? And I want to say that I know that Margot had to deal with this in her religious school class this week, so she's a little exempt from the conversation because she might know how this played out. But again, this isn't based on anything real that could have happened here. What do you think? What would you pick? And tell me why. The scholarship or the red ball? Scholarship. Michael says the scholarship. Tell me why the scholarship.
Because I believe, according to Judaism, we should be helping other people, and using that tzedakah money would do that.
Okay, using the tzedakah money will help other people and bring them in with the scholarship. Good? Yeah. Yeah, so for those of you who could not hear at home, Amanda, she was saying that having a second grader, they probably were kids, and therefore they picked the playground equipment, right? Which could happen, but maybe there's more to it than that, so we can talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say another vote for the playground equipment is that it would help more people and be able to enjoy the playground equipment than just one person getting the scholarship.
Okay, so maybe the playground equipment might help more people to come enjoy the playground equipment, okay? Thank you, yeah. Another vote for the playground equipment. Okay, let's go. It could be for the greater community if you had the playground equipment. Okay, another good answer here. Oh, now everybody's diving in here. I think I made... God, yeah. Also a playground equipment.
I don't think second graders think like some of the comments that are being made, and they also may not even know what a scholarship is.
So I will say that's a good point. They did explain what the scholarship was to the kids, which is, or at least the teacher who was excellent did, which is to say that the scholarship was to help kids who might not be able to pay to come to school to come study at the school. So that was explained to the kids. Yeah.
I vote for scholarship.
Scholarship vote?
This would allow an additional person or more maybe, to attend the school and learn about Torah and improve the world through the study of Torah.
Beautiful. Scholarship will help improve the world through the study of Torah, allow more kids to the school. Great. If you're, okay, anybody else? Yes, Allison?
I vote for scholarship because the playground ball would benefit the children themselves instead of helping others.
Okay, the playground ball, according to Allison, would have benefited the children themselves, but not necessarily benefited others. See, this is not as obvious as you might have thought, yeah? Maxine? I kind of want to end on that note because that was a good one, right? Which is that the playground equipment might entice other children to come, right, to the school who might not otherwise have come before. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but let's get some more comments, yeah? Okay. Okay, so that was a good point. Marcia said the playground equipment might last more than 1 year, and the scholarship might only be 1 year. And what happens the next year when the family needs it again? Okay, good. Any more comments before I close, and then I will come back? Yeah, Ezra, go ahead.
So I would want to know a little bit more information. So for example, like, do the kids get along really well? Because maybe the playground equipment will cause problems because there's only one ball. And then they start fighting, and that causes problems. Or maybe they don't get along very well, and the playground equipment will make a nice, happy community. And you got to get your own house in order before you start trying to get other people's houses.
You must be thinking about that a lot with one more on the way. Right? I hear you on that one, right? Again, the idea that the playground equipment could cause fighting, it could cause them to come together, depending on what it is. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think the answer is and in a little bit, but I'm going to leave you in suspense as we continue with the Torah reading. All right, I have kept you all in suspense long enough, and so here is the answer to the dilemma. And I want to say the teacher whose name shall go unmentioned is in the room right now. As you can imagine, the class was divided. But there was one boy, I am proud to say, whose brilliant power of persuasion, you might almost say rabbinic, was unrelenting in the cause of scholarships. Zev D, no wait, that's too obvious. Let's call him Z Dorsch. Argued that it was important for there to be scholarships for kids to study Judaism. He was so proud he came home to tell me about it. He had a smile on his face when he asked, "I got it right, Dad, didn't I?" Now, in the education world, we call this a values clarification exercise, and it's not always an easy decision. Learners are presented with different values, and they have to decide which one is more important to them. And so, of course, yes, I was proud because Zev had internalized our values by picking scholarships. And had I been in the class, that's probably what I would have picked as the right decision. But here's what I didn't tell him. I didn't tell him that there was a Jewish day school study that came out in the mid-2000s about Jewish day school enrollment, where based on data, the number one criteria for Jewish parents looking to enroll in a Jewish day school were, any guesses from the room? Quality of sports facilities. The shiny playground equipment. I also didn't tell him that today, in the middle of our pandemic, enrollment in Jewish day schools is thriving. Not necessarily only because these schools are providing generous tuition assistance, but because in the eyes of overcautious Jewish parents, the schools have implemented expensive mandatory testing programs and are requiring masking. I also didn't tell him that there is a principle in the Talmud, ma she'eino lishma ba lishma, that someone who decides ultimately to do something for what may not be the quote-unquote right reason may in time come to understand what it is that is the right reason. Meaning that if a kid sees a beautiful new red ball on the playground and decides they want to run to religious school each and every day to play with that red ball, and then that inspires them to want to come back each and every day, that could also be a right decision. Now, the caveat to that, of course, is that it is only a right decision if it also leads us to go in the right direction. And so the challenge with the playground equipment, in my view, is not the playground equipment. It's that society so frequently falls into the trap where the shiny piece of playground equipment becomes an end unto itself. In other words, the values get lost in the valuables. I raise this particular scenario this Shabbat because we can see that tension at play in our parsha this week. Our parsha tells two very different stories about, if you will, religious school enrollments. The first is that it opens with a declaration that every Jew must give machatzit hashekel, a half shekel, in order to be a part of the Jewish community. That half shekel doesn't exclude necessarily rich or poor. It enables everyone to participate. And with this first mitzvah, God and Moses set the Israelites on a very accessible path toward values. Now contrast that with the end of the parsha. Aaron makes a golden calf. He points to that Egel HaZahav. And what does he say? Ela Elohecha Yisrael. This is your God, Israel, who took you out of Egypt. Think about that contrast for a second. A half shekel where everyone can contribute versus a calf of pure gold. It is the ultimate statement about how we can use our resources, talents, towards sacred and profane purposes. In one story, the first one, we are told, it is a truma l'Adonai. The half shekel is a gift to God. In the other, it is clearly a chilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name. Yet before I tell you this is also black and white, I want to show you an image on the cover of my Talmud here that you may never have seen before. It's a ritual that existed, or not a ritual object, that existed in Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. And if you can't see the picture at home, I apologize, but if you're here, I'll pass it around. This object, which was quite large, is called the Yam Mutzak, literally the molten sea. We read about it in the book of Kings, and then again in Chronicles. This is a big pool on top that contained all of the waters used in the Beit HaMikdash for sacrificial purposes. This pool contained about 150 mikvahs worth of water. But if you look at the picture, that's not what interests me. Can anyone see what's holding up the Yam Mutzak on the bottom? 12 golden calves. 12 golden calves as the decorative supports for the water in the Temple of Solomon. Rabbi, you have to be asking now, didn't we just read about the golden calf being horrific? Isn't the very idea of a golden calf in the temple a shanda by its very nature? Folks, it may not surprise you to find out that for the ancient Israelites, there was nothing inherently wrong with a golden calf. In the temple, there were 12 of them. But as Rabbi Jonathan Sachs writes, gold, like money, is a means, but it is dangerous when it becomes an end. Because when it becomes an end to itself, that is when it is a prelude to disaster. As Jews, we can't worship at the altar of a shiny ball, material goods and opulence. Ela Elohecha Yisrael. Our God is the one who cannot be seen, other than a small half a shekel, so that we can be counted. Our God cannot be made of gold unless it is the golden rule. Values like derech eretz menschlichkeit, kavod habriot, honor for our fellow human beings. Friends, what is the golden calf today? It's whatever shiny thing detracts us from seeing those valuables as pathways to values that lead us to believe that God is somehow elsewhere. The golden calf is when a Russian IOC member dopes a 15-year-old girl so that they can win a gold medal. That is a golden calf. It's when a televangelist gets on television and asks for donations for a private jet. It's the British artist Damien Hirst who put up a sculpture for sale at Sotheby's that sold for £10.5 million. He did that, by the way, the week before the market crashed in 2008, and then people were left struggling. That's when he realized his mistake, and he renamed that sculpture to illustrate the point. Y'all know what he called it? The golden calf. The molten waters in Jerusalem teach us that there's nothing inherently wrong with the image of an Egel HaZahav, a golden calf, if it can lead us to a holy outcome. You know, I can't tell you how many people, since Rabbi Miller suggested we bring back the scotch table have told me how much they love coming to shul. We ourselves underwent a beautiful renovation of our own Mishkan, and it's great to sit in this beautiful sanctuary. But in our shul, I don't just see people at that scotch table drinking. I see people toasting l'chaim, to life, celebrating a simcha or something else. In our shul, I don't just see a beautiful renovation, I see an inclusive sanctuary, wheelchair ramps, hearing loops, lighting central to our synagogue's inclusive mission, so that this can truly be a home for all peoples. And so, although in my heart of hearts, I believe the scholarship may be the right answer, in my heart of hearts, I also know that a well-executed piece of playground equipment that teaches children how to play well together can create community, and that is valuable too. Friends, this Shabbat, I want to charge you this morning to look into your lives and your hearts and yourselves. Realize it's not about what we have, but how we take what we have and how we use our talents, our skills, yes, and our gelt to use it to do good in the world. Each of us has things internally we can put toward a holy purpose, whether it's our homes, our resources, our own personal skill sets. There's so much in the world today that distracts us and leads us to Eila Elohecha Yisrael, to the gold medal, the golden calf, and the like. Yet whether we would have voted for a scholarship or a playground ball, let's pledge together to find those valuables and never forget to turn them into values. Shabbat Shalom.